get started because it is almost 6:05. Is everybody ready? All right, good evening, everyone. We will call to order the October 23rd monthly meeting of the Pacheco Stormwater District. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we will now take public comment, and this is public comment on any item that is not on the agenda. So we will now have public comment, but first Victor has a message for us.
The San Benito County Pacheco Stormwater District welcomes your comments. Each individual speaker would be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes. When addressing the district via Zoom, phone, or in chambers, please state your name and county in which you reside for the record. Please address the district as a whole through the chair. If participating via Zoom, select the participating tab and click the raise hand icon. If you are using a phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. When your turn arrives, you will hear that you have been unmuted. If you are participating in person at the chambers, please complete a speaker card or identifying the item on which you wish to speak and provide your completed card to the clerk prior to consideration of the item. Speaker cards are available on the table at the entrance to the chambers.
Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
Okay, moving along. We will consider the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes and the acknowledgement of the certificate of posting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, so there's a motion and then a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so the consent agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to the regular agenda. And first up, as always, is a discussion about levee repair and debris removal. And I changed it on the agenda this month to separate out the work itself from the status of the FEMA application. So that's the way we'll do it this evening. So Steve, you have some news for us.
I do, trustees. So let's see if we can get this presentation up here. Great. Okay. So yes, we made some progress over the past month in a few respects. The first one being that the Pacheco Stormwater District and the county signed the loan agreement for $1.6 million. So that was a very big, exciting milestone that happened during the past month. Also, and I might have mentioned this previously, but right around that time, about a month ago, FEMA performed some site inspections to assess the levee breaches. And we're talking about item 5.1, which, as Michelle said, we're kind of breaking up the work with the status of the application. And so regarding the work, FEMA will provide a decision regarding the amount of reimbursement by approximately November 8th for the levee repairs. And the repairs can proceed prior to November 8th. And now that the district has the funding, we can proceed with the repairs. So that's all good news. Now, one thing we want to do, and the contractors have mentioned as well that we've been talking to, is to perform the debris removal prior to the levee repairs, because they're going to be accessing the debris removals in a few spots. Now, once we get the debris removal moving forward, we'll also start with the repairs. We won't wait till November 8th. to have that work moving forward, because there's a few locations that are not in the same location as the debris removal. Specifically, there's 2 locations on the north side of the levee that we can start moving forward with the levee repairs. And so we're working on that kind of as a parallel path now that we have the funding. So good news on the debris removal also is, as of today, this morning, the Army Corps, Fish and Wildlife, and the Water Board all have permitted the work. And just to clarify, there was this executive order from the governor that says these things can move forward, but you still have to process your request through the different agencies. And so the good news is, as of this morning, the 3 permitting agencies have all said you may move forward with your debris removal work. So that's very good news. So now, next step, we have the permits, we have the funding, and so now we're going to be working on awarding the contracts this week. The current cost estimates that we have total about $900,000. And so, so most of the debris, or most of the funding, looks like it will go towards the debris removal tasks. Fortunately, the levee repairs look like they might only be $300,000 or $400,000 total, and so we should be fine to proceed with the work within the $1.6 million loan agreement. And so I will pause there for public comment or questions.
Thank you, Steve. I know you worked hard on this, and that breakthrough this morning was huge, right? The permits, because that's one of the things that's been really holding it up until now.
Yes.
So, so that's great. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
There appears to be no public comment.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the trustees?
I have one comment, or a question, not a comment. One question. Will the debris removal be done at the same time as the breach? Or what I'm trying to find out. Is the breach going to be open access to be able to go in and remove the debris?
At the main location of the main breach, which has been halfway repaired by the property owner. So the main breach, let's just say, it started out perhaps 15 feet, was washed away. About 7 or 8 feet have been restored, and the contractor will access those to primarily one large debris pile there first before they repair the levee, because they're going to have to place a large machine on the outside, like you're probably thinking. It's called an excavator, and grab the debris and bring it outside of the levee and put it in piles, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then finish that main breach repair. So what we'll do is, while we're doing that, we're going to contract with 2 other contractors. The water district will, and we'll send those proposals to you to repair the levees on the north side, because there's a small breach. There's 2 small breaches on the north side. There's the main one that we'll have to wait on until we get the debris removal finished, and then there's another small one a couple hundred feet downstream of the large one that we can also work on now. So we can work out 3 out of 4 levee repairs now while we do the debris removal. So.
Thank you.
Bet. And one other thing I did forget to mention, but the county made a site visit with a tree, essentially an arborist, but a tree removal company, and we received a contract proposal to remove some trees that the county feels are in a precarious spot just downstream of the Lover's Lane Bridge on the south side of the bridge. There's some large trees right on that bank that the county recommends be removed prior to the next storm events, because they're right on the edge of where some embankments washed out of the creek, and so if they go over, they could bring the embankment with them. And so we'll send that proposal to you as well. I think Michelle might have seen it, but so yeah, so that'll be for your consideration also. So.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably have to put that on the agenda for next month, since that we just got that information today. And then another point, I think, Steve, is that, of course, we're planning to start prior to November 1, but of course won't be finished prior to November 1. Now, you got some indication from, I believe it was Fish and Wildlife, well, and the Water Board, I guess, that even if we're not finished by November 1, which we won't be, we can continue the work as long as we go through their process. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. Great point. So Fish and Wildlife, they looked at the situation and they said, yes, we think you need to perform emergency repairs for the debris removal. And so as long as we keep them informed as of November 2nd and saying we're going to be ongoing with these repairs, they said, please proceed. We just have to inform them. Similarly, as you noted, the Water Board sent us their process so that we can continue the efforts. So yes, it looks like we can proceed after November 1st, which is also very good news, because the large repair is going to take 5 or 6 weeks. The smaller ones, I'm not so sure it'll take that long, but the large areas, the one area is pretty extensive. So yeah.
Okay, so really at this point, in terms of the repairs themselves, there aren't any major hurdles left. We can go ahead and start. That's different from the subject of the FEMA application itself, but in terms of actually proceeding with the work, we just need to get those contracts signed, and then it can begin.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, because I know that's on everybody's mind. Okay.
Correct.
Are there any other comments or questions from the trustees? Okay, then we can move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion of the FEMA applications. So, Steve, what do you have for us there?
Okay, so regarding the FEMA applications and regarding the levee repairs, after the FEMA performed their site visit, they did determine that the 4 levee breach locations were attributed to the winter storm events, so that's good news. That we won't know the amount of funding, and this is an approximate date, but talking to our project manager for the levee repairs, she thinks somewhere around November 8th, we'll know how much money they'll be reimbursing the water district. But again, the loan funds are available, and so, and we have the funds available. The district has the funds available, so we'll just proceed as we mentioned. And then, in addition thing with the levee repairs and kind of the watershed in general, the county actually attended a stakeholder meeting with the Valley Water District. They're called Valley Water. And they manage most of the watersheds in Santa Clara Valley. And because the Pacheco Creek watershed actually extends outside of our county into Santa Clara County, up near the Pacheco Dam and Casa de Fruta, and then it flows down into San Benito County, and then it flows out to the Pajaro. Our area, Pacheco Creek, is included in the Upper Pajaro Watershed Plan. And so 2 things on that note. One, the county has applied for a grant to try to study that whole watershed to help come up with a long-term plan for the area. But 2, on a parallel path, Valley Water, they're actually making a similar effort. They're just getting to this Upper Pajaro Watershed Plan literally at that meeting. They've started to look at this area. And it's interesting, besides just Pacheco Creek, there's also Uvis Creek and Llagas Creek that flow into the Pajaro. So that whole area is starting to be studied by Valley Water. And so they invited us to be part of that discussion because, Pacheco Creek is one of the pieces in that area. And, I think it's a few years out before some of their plan comes to fruition, just like perhaps whatever we can find out in the next, near future. But the good news is that they're looking at the upper, Pajaro watershed, and they really do want the expansion of the Pacheco Creek Dam, but there's some environmental legal challenges going on right now, I guess, with the expansion of that dam, but they really want it to move forward, and it will hold a lot more water if it's allowed to move forward. But the good news is we're talking, and so we've started those discussions so that we're kind of looking at the whole watershed, and it'll help us with Pacheco Creek come up with a better game plan moving forward. And they have a lot of staff. That's all they do is look at watersheds and come up with plans. So that's encouraging. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, and then back to FEMA debris removal. So this part's a little bit frustrating. There's two teams. We have a team that are working on the levee repairs with FEMA, and that's moving forward. Like, we're close to getting estimated costs and some good things. On the debris removal side, we've been kind of in a holding pattern for a couple months now, unfortunately. And so we reached out to the head of FEMA that's leading this event and asked him to, talk to his legal person and provide some determination to just say that Pacheco Stormwater District has a legal authority to maintain Pacheco Creek, i.e., remove debris and vegetation and do some things. It doesn't mean they're permitting that, but we're just asking them to make the determination that the district has a legal authority to do that, so that we can hopefully get reimbursed for that $900,000 from FEMA. So it's important. We've been waiting for a couple months for that to happen. In addition to that, the county actually had a meeting with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren's office. And so we sent an email this morning to FEMA, but our suggestion to this trustee board is, if we don't hear something by, say, this Wednesday, we should reach out again to the Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren's office and ask her to do whatever she can to help move the issue forward. So we look for your input and direction in that regard, and I will pause there. So.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, we have one public comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been unmuted.
Good evening, board, everybody over there. It's my morning. I'm Rochelle Beerley. I'm on San Felipe Road in Hollister, San Benito County. And that's excellent news that's been delivered today at the meeting. I had a question.
Rochelle, we lost you there.
We've lost connection with Rochelle. Oh, she's back. Rochelle, are you there? Rochelle, you've been unmuted.
Okay, why don't we move on for just a minute, and if she's back, we'll give her a chance to speak. Was there any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Okay, well, we'll probably stay on this item for another minute or two, so if she does come back. Do the trustees have any concerns or questions, comments? No. Okay. Steve, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the agenda item about our advisory board meeting. But I'm very interested in the Upper Pacheco Watershed Stakeholder Group. And I'm wondering if you could let me know. Oh, is Rochelle there?
I'm sorry, Michelle, I can wait if you want to continue. I was just testing my microphone.
No, go ahead. Speak while you have the chance.
Okay. Rochelle Beerley, San Benito County, and that's very good news that you've delivered, Steve. So we're really excited about that, obviously. My question is about the legal jurisdiction for the Pacheco our district here. Since it's been around since the 40s, do we still have legal concerns as to if we do hold jurisdiction over the maintenance of the creek?
So the county and Pacheco Stormwater District, we've provided what we think is a robust amount of legal documents on 2 occasions, one in May, I think it was May 16th or May 19th, to FEMA. We provided information. And then because they didn't respond for a while, we actually sent them those same documents again in August. I think it was early August. And they still haven't made the determination, but you're correct. In our opinion, the district was legally formed in the 40s and is a legal district today. And so we don't really know the issue if it's if it's just the age of when it was formed, or we're trying to ascertain some of the reasons what's holding up FEMA, but we're hoping they'll provide the determination soon, or perhaps Congresswoman Lofgren can help out a little bit from her office. We've talked to her once, and her office provided basically an offer to outreach to FEMA. So we're just waiting to see, basically, is where we're at, if that answers your question. So.
And one more question regarding that: if our district is not in control or in management of that position, who would be?
If the corridor was maintained by the Army Corps, it would be under their jurisdiction. But in discussions with the Army Corps over the last week or so, and even this morning, that did not seem to be the case. So that lends credibility to the fact that the water district is legally responsible, and the property owners within the district are responsible, which essentially is what the water district consists of. So yeah, we're still hopeful. I don't know who else would be have the authority to maintain private creek such as this, and so we're hopeful.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Steve, you had asked for our input about getting Congressman Lofgren's office involved. And I think it's time to do that, or at least if we don't get a response in the time that you've given our FEMA representative. You said October 25th, so by Wednesday, if we don't get... and this is actually a supervisor that we're talking with now.
This is the person that is in charge of the both storm events, they call it the 4683, which was December-January storm event. And then after January, they call it the 4699 event. So he's oversees both those. He's the top person. And we reached out to him twice. And so, yeah.
And it's very curious, since one project appears to be moving forward and the other isn't. So it doesn't make any sense. But so do we need to, from my perspective, I think it's time to go to the Congresswoman's office. We can get some consensus here from the other trustees. Do we need an actual vote, you think? No, okay. All right. So do the other trustees have any feedback about whether we should go to Zoe Lofgren's office and ask her to intervene on our behalf with FEMA?
I think it can be the best, yeah.
Okay. So I think the consensus is yes, it's time to do that.
Sounds good.
And if you need anything from me or any of us, please let us know.
I shall do that.
Okay. All right, then I think we can move on. Let's go to 5.3. And this should look familiar. This is a resolution to consider and adopt, the item is to consider and adopt a resolution accepting the grant of easement for, and there's an APN number, and that actually is the Florex property. So we already actually voted on this. I believe it was last meeting or the meeting before, I can't remember. But apparently, so we put it in the consent agenda and voted on it as a part of the consent agenda, but actually we're supposed to vote on it as a separate item in the regular agenda. So basically, this is an easement in favor of the district in order to do the repairs. And these are similar easements that we have all up and down the creek. It's just that there was not one for the Florex property. And so that they signed it and I signed it. And so now we just have to pass a resolution accepting the grant of this easement. Did I get that right?
Yes, you got that right. The easement itself asked for a resolution to be passed, so thus we are
That's
here.
why. Okay, so are there any questions or is there any discussion about this? Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
There appears to be no public comment.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept, to pass this resolution accepting the grant of this easement?
So I motion that we accept the resolution for this easement grant.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes. We will move on now to item 5.4, an update on the application for the director's liability insurance. So there's not too much to say here. Sean, our counsel, and I met about this and talked about it, and haven't actually done anything. Well, I have done one thing. So I reached out to the insurance broker. So, as a review, there were two policies that we're considering. One is a policy that is sold by a local insurance broker who also, I believe, insures the Pacheco Pass Water District. And then the other is a policy through the Special Districts Association of California. I can't remember what it's SDRMA. I can't remember what that stands for. But so there's these two policies that we're considering. But in order to get actual quotes, we have to fill out the applications. And so that's where the delay has been, is that I just haven't filled out the applications because they're quite long. So I do actually have a phone call scheduled tomorrow with the broker, for the local broker, for that application. I'm going to talk to her about what we need to fill out and what we don't, and get a better idea of exactly what information needs to be on the form. And then once I have that, I'll probably be coming to you, Steve and Sean, for any information that I don't have. And then we will at least file that application so that we can get a quote for that policy. I'm interested in that one in particular because it might be less expensive. I don't know that for sure, but I think it might be less expensive. So I want to see how much that one comes in first before I go to the trouble of applying for the other one. So that's the boring explanation on this, the liability insurance. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
There appears to be no public. Rochelle, we have one public comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been unmuted.
Sorry, quick question regarding the liability insurance. Why is that required and what is it for exactly? Perhaps I missed the initial introduction on that, if you don't mind, Michelle.
Sure. I didn't actually give an explanation tonight. We've talked about it at past meetings, but basically this insurance policy protects the 3 trustees or the 5 trustees, if there are 5. It protects the trustees from liability for decisions that we make. We're making decisions about the creek. We'll be making decisions in the future. It may affect someone adversely. And so we just wanted, I believe, and I think that my fellow trustees probably agree, that it would be good to be protected from any liability for decisions that we make. So what we're looking at is a general liability policy, and then also a director's errors and omission kind of policy, basically. And although we're not doing the actual work in the creek, right, we've got contractors that are doing that, and they all have their own insurance, which will also protect us because we will ask that we be added as additional insureds. This is separate. This is specifically to protect the trustees in our capacity as trustees for liability resulting from any decisions that we make about the creek. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And along with that question, who's going to be paying that? Is that coming from our reserves?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to do some price shopping. That I got sort of an off the cuff quote from the SDRMA. I mean, again, to get an actual quote, I have to fill out the application. But she said, well, the minimum is $3,500 a year. So I want to see if we can do better than $3,500 a year. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Any questions or comments from the trustees? No. All right, then let's move on. So the next item, 5.5, is a report on the Pacheco Stormwater District Advisory Board meeting, which was held October 9th. And in attendance were myself and our advisory board, and that is Bill and Lucinda Florek, Rochelle Beerley, and Anthony Botello. So 3 of the 4 are present tonight. Anthony could not be here. So the purpose of this meeting was to talk about some medium to long-term goals. And there were 4 topics that we talked about. The first was, how do we raise money? The second was, how do we work with other water districts or other agencies in the area? The third was, how do we get permits for ongoing creek maintenance? Because as Steve mentioned, there is an exception right now for storm cleanup, but looking ahead, if we want to do regular maintenance, how do we get the permits to do that? And then the 4th topic was expanding the boundaries of the Pacheco Stormwater District. So I'll just briefly go through each of those topics and what was talked about. In terms of raising funds, we focused on two main ideas. One was applying for grants, and I'm going to let Rochelle talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we talked about that, and we also talked about the possibility of a tax assessment, a property tax assessment, essentially. So with respect to the assessment, The first thing that we decided that we needed to do was talk to Joe Paul Gonzalez about how we would go about putting something like this on the ballot. So I've reached out to him. I haven't heard back yet, but I did just send him an email. So, and then I'll probably, of course, need to talk to Sean about this as well. But this is still in the preliminary sort of exploratory stage. You know, again, will we actually put this on a ballot? I don't know. But I think we at least need to talk about it. And, you know, I think that, yeah, we need to show the County Board of Supervisors that we're doing everything we can to raise money. So we're talking about it. But then we also talked about grants, and of course, we're going to need to, as we move forward, we're going to need to talk in more detail about this with Steve. And, you know, because they have a lot of experience there at the county applying for these grants. And you've even mentioned some of these grants early on. So, but Rochelle has also been doing a little bit of digging. And so I'm going to just pause and see if Rochelle has any comments about that particular topic about grant money.
Rochelle, you've been unmuted.
Yeah, I did make a little bit of progress right after our meeting. I guess I went the direction of first starting with local agencies, and so I've put my feelers out to USDA. They did reply, the local office, and said that she was passing it on to 2 potential departments that she thought might be of service, and she didn't name those, but she said she's forwarded the information. So I'll follow up with her on that. I also reached out to our district supervisor, who is Dom Zanger. Perhaps he can direct us with some ideas. I did send a email to a contact that I have at the California Farm Link. And my thought with that is going through the conservation direction. So I think that we're approaching this as a group that wants to conserve and manage the creek, and those are kind of like the main resource agencies that I know of. And if you do have further ideas on this, Steve, I would love to hear from them, because you know, it would help to have a couple more eyes on the area and how to go about it. Of course, we'll make the initial contact first, we'll get the feedback, and then we'll go from there. I did also reach out to the Pacheco group, the Pacheco Dam, because I also wanted to find out how they are getting funding and if they apply for grants. And I guess, Michelle, you'll hit on that topic next, and I'll further on that topic. I think I jumped a little bit ahead. So that's where I'm at right now. Haven't heard anything back, put the feelers out, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Rochelle. Yeah, before we move on to working with other water districts, in terms of, I mean, this is a big topic, applying for grants. And what I'd really love to see is a specific subcommittee of the district devoted just to that, right? And they would probably meet with you and Madison and anyone else who could be helpful in that respect. So, you know, there's a lot to do right now. We're really focused on just trying to get this mess cleaned up. So I don't know if we do anything right now or we put it off to the beginning of the year, but we definitely want to have a plan. So,
Yeah, county staff, Madison and I, we'd be happy to be part of that subcommittee. And we've heard of a few other mitigation type grants that FEMA's mentioned us. It was a 404, I think, is one of the grants that they mentioned. So, in the very near future, I'll brainstorm. I don't know if Madison, if you want to provide your input in that regard. But
I have a comment. Hello, everyone. I'm Madison Mitchell with the Office of Emergency Services for the county. My recommendation is if we're looking at pursuing any state or federal grants, we're going to want to start working and creating your hazard mitigation plan. So that plan is a requirement for most of the state and federal grant allocations. When the county updates their plan in a few years, you can join that update and be part of that multi-jurisdictional plan update. But unfortunately, it was updated last year, and we don't expect another update for a few years. So it would be beneficial to work towards your own policies and plans, at least this hazard mitigation plan. And if you're interested in that, I can help pursue the creation of that. I can provide the counties for review, but my recommendation would be take advantage of some of the state grants specifically for creating and writing your hazard mitigation plan. And I'm happy to discuss that in further detail at a different time.
Thank you, Madison. I know you actually, now I remember that you've mentioned that before in discussions. And so it's just, there's so much, right?
Yeah.
But so basically what you're saying is that before we even apply for grants to do the work, we should apply for a grant to do the hazard mitigation plan, because we need the hazard mitigation plan in order to be eligible to get some of these grants.
Correct.
Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And it's not all grants, but most of the grants that you have funneled through the state will require an active hazard mitigation plan. And when I say active, it not only has to be written, it has to be approved by the state and also adopted by the board. So you find ladies and gentlemen right here. So it is a process. It sounds very daunting, but I'm happy to help. I will this week see what's available grant-wise through the state to see if they have any active and open grant opportunities to pursue a hazard mitigation plan. So I can get back to you guys with that.
Okay, excellent. So, okay, so maybe that should be where we focus our efforts next, right?
I will say most of these grants that are available for hazard mitigation plans have a cost share.
Oh, okay.
So it's typically like
Like-
25%.
Oh, 25.
So that being said, there are opportunities the state has which will essentially waive that cost share, so we can see if you guys are eligible for that. But I just want you to keep in mind your plan would likely cost anywhere between $80,000 to $120,000 based on hazard mitigation plans, historical data for San Benito County. It may be cheaper because you guys are a smaller jurisdiction, but I would look at planning for at least $80,000, so 25% of that cost share, or we can pursue avenues for the to see if the state will fund that share for you.
All right. Well, before we do this, and certainly before we apply for a grant, we probably need to vote on it, but we're not ready to vote on it because it's not on the agenda and we don't know anything about it. So maybe what we need to do is maybe you could come back next month and just give us a little like hazard mitigation plan 101 lecture.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I can
All
do
right. So
it.
we'll put that
Perfect.
on the agenda for next month.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Is there any, what do I want to say here? Well, we'll save public comment until we get through the whole 4 items. Well, maybe we'll just go through the whole 4 items real fast now and then come back and you can, the trustees can give me their comments and we can take public comment too. Okay. So the second thing, well, and actually, so Lucinda and Bill Florek, the other advisory board members that are here, did you want to make any comments about funding or about that part of our discussion? Okay. Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll probably, I mean, if we do this, we'll have to have a hazard mitigation plan subcommittee, probably. So, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to ask her to come next month and give us a little presentation. All right, let's move on to working with other water districts. So we identified a few different water districts. Did you have a comment? No. Oh, okay. We identified a few different water districts that we thought would be good to target. I probably shouldn't put it that way, but in terms of reaching out, and those were the Pacheco Pass Water District, which is our neighbor, basically. And they are the ones that run the dam, is my understanding, right? Okay. And then Valley Water District, San Benito Water District, and Resource Conservation District were 4 that were mentioned during our discussion. We decided during the meeting to focus on Pacheco Pass, since they seem to be the most relevant at the time. Although it sounds like, since Valley Water is doing all of this watershed study and stuff, it sounds like we probably should be connecting with them as well. But let's hold off on that for a second. So I'll let Rochelle go ahead and talk about what contacts she's been able to make so far. Rochelle?
Yes, so I did reach out to the dam operator, or the dam commission, I guess, and they did reply and said that well, let me back up. My concern my purpose for reaching out to them was announcing that we've reformed our Pacheco Storm District group, and that we are concerned about proactively maintaining the creek, and we think that we want to talk with them about their ideas on how they release water, etc. And so Barbara Morrow responded and said that per her district council, Paul Rovella, they have decided to add this as an item on their Thursday meeting agenda. So that's the update that I have regarding the outreach.
Thank you, Rochelle. That's great. I saw that email today, and that's good news. So, Steve, we started to talk about this earlier, but I think that as part of this goal of connecting with other water districts, we should probably start going to these. I know you're already representing us at these stakeholder meetings, but if you can let me know when the next meeting is, maybe one of us can go, or one of the advisory board members.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is they're on Zoom, so I'll forward the next invite. I'm not sure the meetings they even created. I think they mentioned it might be in about a month for the next Valley Water meeting. And one of the things they mentioned that they want to do for our watershed is a flooding sensitivity study. I don't know when that's going to occur, but it sounded very encouraging. They've done a similar study for some of their watersheds in northern Santa Clara County, and so they said they wanted to hopefully do something similar for the upper Pajaro watershed. So that was encouraging. But yeah, we'll forward the invite for next month, and we'll go from there. So
Great, thank you. And I'll just mention that our main purpose at this point is to learn about these other districts, what they're doing, how we can work together on this huge problem that we have. Although I will say, it was mentioned during a public comment at one of our meetings that we should join the San Benito Water District. So that's not really on the table right now, but I figured, before we start to ask to become part of someone else's district, we should at least know what they're doing. So that's another reason that we're doing this. Okay, let me go on to the third goal, which is the permits to do ongoing maintenance. And I have made that my pet project. I'm taking that on. So Steve is going to introduce me to his contacts at Fish and Wildlife so that I can learn a little bit more about the process. And also, I might reach out to some of our political representatives, Robert Rivas or Orzo Lofgren. So there's just a lot to learn, and I think that's going to be a really long and involved process. So that was really all that came out of that discussion. And then finally, in terms of expanding the boundaries of the district, we didn't have a lot of time to discuss this, but we talked about two possible ways that we could expand the district. One is to expand the physical boundaries beyond the narrow sort of area around the part of the creek, right? We could expand it to include property owners that fall outside of the boundary, property owners that anyway, like maybe all of Lover's Lane and all of San Felipe, possibly Shore Road, maybe even going up further upstream. That was just something we tossed around briefly. The other way that we could expand the district would be to change the requirements for assuming that your property is within the boundaries of the district. What are the requirements to actually sit as a trustee? Right now, in addition to the property being within the district, you have to be an owner and a resident, right? So you have to both live there and own the property. And that actually excludes a number of people, especially property owners who don't actually live. They might farm the property or they might rent it out, but they don't actually live there. So we are interested in possibly finding out, especially how we can expand it, open it up to owners who don't actually live in the district, because they are impacted as well by the flooding. So that might be the simplest way to expand the district right now. But obviously to do that, we're going to need some input from Sean, I think. So.
Yeah, I can look at that. So the idea would be that they would own the property but not live on the property.
Yes. So instead of being both residents and owners, it would be sufficient to be an owner.
Right. Okay.
And the reason that we're talking about this anyway is for a few different reasons. I mean, one is that obviously, we're a very small board here, right? So we would like to increase the pool of potential people. And in fact, we're going to be talking about the upcoming election in a few agenda items here. So, to get more people who can actually sit as trustees, it'd be great to have 5. And then also just to, if we expand in terms of geographic area, if we can obtain easements from some other people, that might be helpful in flood control. Of course, if we end up doing an assessment, then it would be very useful to have more people in the district, more properties. So anyway, that was just, again, we had a brief conversation about that. So Rochelle or Bill or Lucinda, do you have any other comments about what we talked about on October 9th that we haven't already covered? Do you have any input? Okay. Rochelle, do you have anything else other than what we've already said?
No, I just wanted to, I just think that today's regarding that last expansion of the district, topic, really, I think that that's quite important for us because today's outlines really don't represent, what was back in 1942. And, I think it's really important to work on expanding those boundaries because really this is a community uniter for us. We have to get strong, work together, be on the same page. And that way, we get off of needing to, go to the county every time we need money because we flooded. So I think that's a really big, important goal for us to grow as a group, really to unite us and be on the same work ethic to keeping the creek clean and to working on, omitting the flood issue or controlling it much better than it has been in the past. So that's my feedback.
Thank you, Rochelle. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And so I'd like to open it up now to the trustees for questions or comments. Also, I'd like to say before I open it up that obviously we're going to have a number of subcommittees, a number of sub-projects that we're going to be working on. And I'd like to invite the two trustees, if there's any particular issue that you are interested in and you'd like to work on, that would be great. I met with the advisory board on October 9th, but if we have subcommittees, and as long as there's not more than one of us at any of these meetings, they don't have to be public meetings. So I'm happy to, give a subcommittee to any of the other trustees who are interested. So, okay, I will stop talking now and see what the other trustees have to say.
I just have a comment. What about the people they rent to farming in the area? I know they get damage too with the flood. So they can count those people too or not?
Yeah, we can talk about that. We can certainly talk about allowing people who live there or do business there but don't actually own property. That could be something that we could talk about. Perhaps the first thing that we need to do is find out how difficult it is or what are the legal steps to change some of these requirements. I assume that it would be just changing I don't think we have bylaws actually. So maybe we need to, I don't know. I don't know what we have to do. So,
Yeah, it would typically be set up in bylaws. The boundaries is a different issue because you have to get people to vote on that.
yeah.
And then it would be a LAFCO, I think, involvement too. But yeah, I can look at the renters. I think it's typically owners that can vote in these sort of situations, but I can look and see if there is a possibility of that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that'll be, as far as that topic goes, maybe that's the first place to start is what are the legal requirements to make this change? Obviously we're going to need to vote on it, but it might require more than that. So, okay. What else?
The expansion of the district, does that realign what is considered the flood zone? Like certain properties are called, they're in the flood zone, and then there are some other properties we're not in the flood zone.
I don't think that'd be a limitation necessarily. No, I think you can define your borders as you would like. I don't think it needs to be limited to the flood zone, no.
And the flood zone is determined by, Steve, help me with this.
FEMA, and they do studies periodically of different areas, and they update the flood zones. But FEMA is the one that produces the flood zone maps. So.
Okay, other questions or
No.
comments? Is anybody interested in Oh, okay.
On that recommendation. Just to clarify, with.
Go ahead and tell us your name.
Sorry, Lucinda Floric, nice to be here. But for Armando, you mentioned that you want renters to vote on agenda or assessments or something on the property? Is that what you're recommending?
It's because I when this thing happened, I met a lot of people they farming, and they lost tractors, equipment,
Right.
So this is my question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted just an in-depth, because to me as an owner, and I have somebody renting a property, they're going to vote an assessment and then they're gone. And so then that implies an assessment on me, which they're no longer liable for. I mean, they're not paying it, we're gonna be paying it. But, so that's my concern, is that if you allow renters to make these voting rights, give them rights to vote on assessments, it could, they can make the assessment, they can move in, people can move in, make votes, assess the owners, and then they'll be gone.
Okay.
And so that could be a little bit tricky for the people who are owning the properties, because now they have assessments that, was put upon them, and the people that voted on are no longer there. So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's something to think about, and I'm a little concerned about, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Okay. Thank you, Lucinda.
We have one additional comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been unmuted.
And Michelle, I would like to say regarding the subcommittee, I would put myself forward to help, like I said, with the grants, also the assessment map, our boundaries, as well as our future responsibilities for creek maintenance. So I'm game to help out anywhere I can for that. And I did have one final question for Steve, perhaps. Did we ever decide what we're going to do with the debris once it's removed from the creek?
Yeah, so I spoke with CAL FIRE's Captain George Nunez, and he suggested that we obtain via rental or borrowing what they call curtain burners, and they're essentially metal bins with a furnace on one end. And so he said step one is to get the debris out of the creek and onto dry land, and two, his suggestion is to place the debris in these curtain burners. And I also talked to the Davy tree person that I mentioned previously regarding chipping the wood, and he thought that was not a very viable idea. So then we're back to the curtain burners. So that's the plan. So I still have to progress that discussion with CAL FIRE.
Okay, and regarding the curtain burners, my first question, will they be supplied, and when will they be delivered, and what is the cost? And then are we going to separate debris from organic versus debris like rubber and metal and all the other fun things that are going to be pulled out from the creek, I'm sure?
And I reached out to California Conservation Corps and requested they help with separating the organics from the non-organics, but their response was that their staff does not perform that task. And so that will be a task. Looking at the piles, 95% of the piles is organic, but we are going to have to perform that separation once we get the piles out of the creek as kind of a phase 2. And regarding the cost, again, I've actually had 2 conversations with the CAL FIRE chief, but we haven't, he hasn't determined whether we rent them or lease them or borrow them. I think it's a timing type of thing. So I'll try to make some progress in those discussions over the next week or so with CAL FIRE.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other public comment on this agenda item?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Okay, is there any comment or questions from the trustees?
Steve, I have a question. Last time that we discussed regarding, burning the pile, you mentioned that FEMA might not cover it. So,
Yeah, and if I spoke in that regard, I'm not sure. I don't think that's been determined, so I might have been premature to note that it wasn't covered. Yeah, I don't think we've submitted those costs to FEMA. Matter of fact, with regarding the debris piles, until this legal determination is made, I asked our project manager directly, what can I submit in the meantime? And the answer was nothing until this legal determination is made. She said we can proceed with the work, but as far as moving that discussion forward on what they will cover and what they won't, we're kind of still in this this holding pattern. So we need to get over that hurdle, and then we can submit some costs and things and see where that goes. So, yeah.
thank you.
Okay, anything else from the trustees?
No more questions.
Okay, then we will move on to 5.6, which is update on publicity and outreach activities. So, is anything going on with we talked last month about putting up a sign, basically, on Lover's Lane, and we talked about a few other things. So, is there anything going on with that?
No. So then I know that there were these 2x4s that were up there. So then when I drove home, they were no longer there.
Oh,
So I have to figure out how to get those up there so that we can put the postings up there again.
So I actually met with Trustee Alfaro, was it Friday, I believe? Yeah. So there was a meeting with Trustee Alfaro, myself, and our county sign installation person. And so the thought is actually to put it on the corner of Trustee Alfaro's frontage near a utility pole, and we'll have a two-way wood sign installed at that location, if that's okay. So there'll be 3 4x4 posts and 2 panels. And I actually thought it would have happened by now, but apparently it hasn't. So I'll talk to our sign person, and it should happen in the next few days, I think. So.
okay. Lucinda, do you have something? Did you? Oh, okay. All right. Great. That's good. That's definite. Thank you for working on that. Was there anything else that we were going to work on in terms of publicity? Did we decided we were going to do the sign first, get that done?
I think she said, right, the signs and the internet, all the information they're supposed to be on the internet.
Yeah. Well, we have links to a lot of things now on our web page that the county is hosting for us. Well, let's work on the sign. Let's work on the sign first, get that done, and then we can talk about what other ways we can publicize our activities. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
We have one public comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been unmuted.
Michelle, did we not talk about a updated roster to circulate amongst group members?
You're right. We did talk about that. So, but I don't know what we were supposed to do with that.
How about we just update it and reach out to the current members that we have? And I'm sure there's a list somewhere from one of the meetings, and I can put it together, just a simple type up, or somebody else can. And and we can at least get the name, address, and email and phone number so that we can send updates on meetings. I mean, that's a pretty quick and easy thing to do.
And this would be a list of contact information emails of people who attended those meetings back in, I guess it was the end of February, right? That's what we're
March.
talking about. February, March.
Yeah. I think that's the
Okay.
easiest and quickest form of communication in addition to the signage.
So who has the list then?
I'll try to locate that list. I've definitely seen the hard copy, and that'll be an action item for me to locate it and then distribute it to the trustees, and then you can send it to the advisors. But
Okay.
I think we can locate that for you. So.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Is there any other public comment on 5.6?
There is no further public comment.
Okay, we're getting closer to the end. 5.7 is discussion of future agenda items. Do the trustees have any suggestions for future agenda items?
When I talked to Steve last week, we talking about the road, how bad it is in Lovers Lane. And Steve, he saw it, the people they speeding very bad. And I talked to Steve, we can put some speed bumpers. In
Yeah.
the future, I mean, I know we cannot do it right now.
Well, I agree the road is terrible. I agree with that. Unfortunately, I think that is really beyond the scope of the Pacheco Stormwater District because it doesn't really have, well, I guess it is sort of tangentially related to the flooding. Although I think the part that flooded and then was repaved is actually pretty good. I think the part that has all the potholes is the part that didn't flood, right? So I'm hesitant to put that on the agenda because we don't really have any, it doesn't have to do with the creek or the flooding. But what is your opinion on that, Sean?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's within your jurisdiction, the road and the road maintenance itself.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about how bad it is, but we don't have any, I mean, we can't vote on it or anything, right? So
Sure, right. You could
Yeah.
talk about it. That's true. Yes.
Well, since the county's public works administrator is here tonight, I'll add it to the list. We have 12 or 13 segments that we're starting to study one by one. And I don't honestly know that if there's a posted speed of Lover's Lane or San Felipe, but just kind of an FYI, if there's no posted speed, then the default speed is over 35 miles an hour, and so it would not qualify for a speed study. But if it's posted,
40. It's 40.
It's
The
40?
speed limit is 40.
okay, so then what would have to happen is it'll be a slightly different process. Per the governor, we can reduce the speed limit by 5 miles per hour unilaterally. The county can do that. So we'd have to take, the first step is to make the speed limit 35. And then once it's 35, then we can do a speed study, which could result in showing that the speeds are over, 40-ish. And then you could qualify for a speed bump. So long story short, I'll look into officially reducing the speed limit by 5 miles per hour. That'll be step one. And then if that can occur, then you'll qualify for a potential, speed bumps and speed study once your speed limit is 35. So I'll do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then we don't even have to put it on the agenda.
No.
Okay. All right. Other future agenda items? Any other ideas? Oh, yes. Please go ahead, Lucinda.
Kind of pertains, hello, my name is Lucinda Florek again. This one's a little bit pertains to the advisory boards. I don't know if you guys have an email specific for each one of you or if it's a group, but if we are going to be speaking to agencies and stuff, I would not like to use my personal email. I would like to have a little bit more official email. Is that possible to get one? for myself and Bill? Or the advisory people?
Yeah. Well, the only email that we have right now is Pacheco Stormwater District at gmail.com, which I look at, roughly once a week or so.
The thing is, I would like to have like Lucinda.Floric,
Advisory
Pacheco,
board, yeah.
Stormwater.org or something, so that it seems a little bit more official when I'm
Yeah.
contacting people.
We don't have our own domain. I created the Gmail account because we needed something quick. It was discussed about whether the trustees would have county email addresses, and at the time, I think it was determined that that really wasn't appropriate since we're an independent agency, although obviously very dependent on the county. I don't know. Steve or Sean, do you have any thoughts about that? I mean,
Not particularly. I think you can set up, private companies, I think, have the ability to have your own suffix sort of thing, right? After the at. So it might be something you just look at.
yeah, I
It might
don't
be
know how much does
relatively
it
inexpensive.
cost.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
not
thing.
sure.
I mean, we don't really.
Right.
We're on a shoestring here.
I was just wondering if the county could somehow provide that for us, though, because we're part of the,
An alternative too is you can set up your own Gmail that's a separate from your personal, right? And then name it something that was, related
well, I
to
just
the.
kind of like the org part. I don't know what it takes to get that ORG part. Making it not a private email, but an organization email. So I don't know anything about that.
I'm not totally sure myself. It might be
So I thought maybe,
nonprofit sort of situation that you need to satisfy in order to get that. I'm not totally sure myself.
sure.
Yeah.
since,
Yeah, as far as the county, our IT folks, they just maintain county staff emails in general, just FYI. But perhaps you can pursue some of the options that Sean mentioned. So, yeah.
okay, I just thought I think it would be easier for us to communicate as an organization instead of a private email. That way, people might listen to us a little bit better, or just say, oh, it's just a private individual instead of it's an organization that's trying to communicate.
Okay, well, we could put it on the agenda for next month to talk
Yeah.
about, because anything we do would cost money. It might not cost a lot of money,
I
but it
don't-
would
yeah,
cost
may not
money,
cost, yeah. Okay,
probably.
all right
So,
then.
Okay, I'll do that.
You can write that down as an assignment. I'll contact maybe another district, see if they have a .org type email set up for them.
Yeah, I'm sure if you did a Google search on how do you get the .org suffix,
Yeah.
that's I don't think that's the problem as much as, I mean, we would need some sort of web hosting or something, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
Or, well, anyway.
Anyway,
Yeah, go ahead,
I
and
just
if you
want-
would like to do some research, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments?
We have one comment, public comment via Zoom. Rochelle, you've been muted.
I just wanted to add for future agenda items, is there any way that we can kind of clear up our duties as a district as to exactly what we're in charge of? Or exactly what we're responsible for, why we formed and what we're doing? I mean, if we're gonna start worrying about our roads, I understand we have lots of road problems, and you can count me in on San Felipe. I'm the little, little highway in the morning. So, where do we start? Where do we begin? Where do we end with all this stuff? I think our main priority really has to be creek maintenance, getting it cleaned out, getting the levees done, and then move right on to creek maintenance. But what does that term mean? So how do we determine what our responsibilities really are? That's kind of my concern.
Okay, well, we're not going to put anything about the roads on the agenda, so we're gonna stick with the creek. In terms of what does creek maintenance mean, I mean, to me, that gets into, well, what do we need to do to actually clear debris on a regular basis and vegetation and that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know who. I mean, we could invite someone to tell us about the history if we could find someone who could tell us about what was done in the past. Is that what you were asking, or?
That would certainly help. I don't know if past is going to meet present and the same rules are going to apply. But yeah, do we start figuring out how to maintain? Is that by means of, let's say, getting a herd of goats in there every springtime to roam the creeks? Which areas can they roam? Do district members appoint our district members to walk the creek, drive the creek, see how it's looking? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so where do our duties begin, since we're all here to improve the health of the creek, open its passageways so that the water can flow? I mean, is this within our reach? Are we asking too much? And so I think that it would be helpful if we could identify where our boundaries are and where our focus is as a district.
Okay, so you're not talking about what is our legal authority, because I think we have the legal authority probably to do any of those things that you just mentioned. It sounds like what you're talking about is what would be a good thing to do in terms of maintenance. Is that
right?
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. How do we get started with our future maintenance plans?
Okay. All right. I mean, we could put it on the agenda, but I think it's sort of more of a subcommittee kind of discussion. I mean, the only thing I could think of to put on an agenda would be asking Steve to do a presentation about best practices for creek maintenance. I don't know what else we would talk about at this point.
So I would suggest this, and I just forwarded the founding documents for the district, which mentioned some of those activities. I forwarded that to Michelle's email. So, but yeah, I can provide some suggestions and outlines for what other counties are, performing as activities within the creeks where they have jurisdiction, or other agencies, I should say, and provide some suggestions for those type of best management practices. So yeah, we can do that in the next agenda item for the next month. I'll put that presentation together for the trustee and the advisory board's consideration. So
thank you, Steve. Okay, any other suggestions? Any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Any other agenda items from the trustees? Okay, so we will move on to the last agenda item. This is where we have to discuss and determine which trustees will serve 2-year terms and which trustees will serve a 4-year term. So, okay, so I guess this has to do with the election next year. And maybe Sean, you could explain what we're talking about here.
Right. So you need to determine who's going to serve, which 2 trustees are going to serve the 2-year terms, and which one is going to serve the 4-year term. You can do that by discussing it amongst yourselves and just deciding. If you prefer not to do that, then you can do it by picking straws.
And so how does this, I mean, we all need to go through the election process next year, right? All of our seats are up for election or not?
No, I think, one will be for 4. So,
okay.
Right. And then the other 2 will be for 2 years. So from the time you were appointed, 2 years, from that point.
Okay. So we are actually going to vote on, either discuss it and vote on it or draw straws tonight
Correct.
about this. Okay. All right. So the two positions that serve the 2-year terms will stand for election next year. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. But the person who gets the 4-year term, it'll be an additional 2 years after that before they
Right.
go through an election process.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, is there any, well, first, is there any public comment on this item?
There appears to be no public comment. Well, one public comment via Zoom. Rochelle, you've been unmuted.
So do we know who qualifies for the 2-year and who qualifies for the 4-year yet?
That is what we're deciding. I think any of the seats could be 2 years or 4 years, right? So we're just
Right.
deciding which ones are which.
Right. When you were appointed, it wasn't determined then, and so now we're doing it now.
Okay. So what would the trustees like to do?
My comment would be for you to hold a 4-year, because you have the lead right now as to everything that you've already accomplished, and you have a lot of information and all your connections on setting forth from whatever we've started from the beginning to now. I think my position could be a 2-year one.
Okay.
And that way, whoever's taking the lead would have it for 4 years instead of having it rotate every 2 years. It would be for a full 4 years. And then if it's a new person, then it would be for another 4 years. That way they don't skip out in 2 years.
Okay. All right. Trustee Alfaro, what do you think?
I think the same. You have more experience. So I just want to be here for 2 years. That's it. You know?
Okay. All right. So it seems that it seems to be a consensus. I guess I'll take the 4-year term if that's fine. So I guess we do need to vote on this, though.
Yes.
Okay.
I would make a motion, yep.
Okay. All right. So I move that the term held by Trustee Schroeder will be a 4-year term, and the terms held, the seats, is that, what are they, seats
Either
that are
works.
held? Seats
Either works.
held by trustees Azcona and Alfaro will be 2-year terms. Is there a second on that?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, that was easy.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so the only thing left is to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we conclude this meeting.
As second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Our next meeting will be November 27th.